A very good morning to all the guys. You might watch this video in the afternoon or maybe in the morning, so it doesn't matter unless you're getting the portion or unless you're getting the message right. So for what we have learned, we just started with the professional login system design using MVC pattern in JSP, which is Java Server Pages, and we were successful in covering few topics and designing few patterns. But today I'll theoretically make you understand about a few different things. Number one, what is an MVC pattern, right? And number second, the MVC designing patterns, right? Then we will see how the sessions work. Since I know, I've already told you that HTTP is a stateless protocol. It does not remember states. Or I've already told you that it's been designed in such a manner it does not remember states. And I gave you one task in the previous video. Those who have not watched the previous video, I just advise them to watch JSP part number 2, which is MVC design part number 2, and then come to this video. And now all those who have watched and have started a fresh video, which is part number 3, I suppose, right? So it's part number 3 of Java Server Page MVC based login system. They do remember that I gave them a task of doing this count using input type hidden to maintain the state of the page using input by type hiddens, right? And those who have done, very good job, and those who have not done, right, still very good job, because these are just early days, right? So you will learn in the concurrent classes, but I just request you, I keep on doing it, request you to practice hard, practice very hard, so that the code goes inside your brain, right? So you have to keep on writing and doing different things, and please also do not stop experimenting. Right, what I did here, simply I am taking count is already 1, right? You can see we have input type hidden. Let's for the sake make it input type text, and let me refresh it. Input type text has 1 and the count is 2. What if I drop the count here and do this? Count is 3. What if I drop the count here and do it again? Count is 5. What if I drop the count here? Count is 6. What if I drop it here? 6. The count will be 7. So this is the same thing that we'll be doing here. Alright, so instead of the value, I can say input type hidden will be used to maintain the state. I can say print simple request dot get parameter, right? I'm directly printing it, request dot get parameter, which in our case is just a moment, what happened to this? Request dot get parameters, P is capital, and the name is txt value. So what am I doing? On post, I am printing the value which is already in this input type text. I'm printing it back, right? So now it will not do the job, but I'm just trying to make you understand what are the different techniques. So it already has null. I will say 1 and I'll say 2. Now if I print it, this 2 should come right here, right? So that it keeps on adding, right? So what you can do right here is define int a is equal to 1, right? So this is declaration. So int a is equal to 1 has to be declared somewhere. So I will just declare it. Let's say about. So let me get rid of this first. Let me get rid of this, right? Or you can also do this. You can also do this and try this. Request.get parameter value plus plus. You can also try this, but this, since you have to convert it to integer and you have to do rest of the things, so right, I'll try and make you understand, right? I repeat, I'll just give you the idea again. What we need to do is the count is, there's nothing in the count, so I'll just keep value as 1, right? So you can see 1 comes here and 2. If we are able to drop that 2 in here, and then it's also going to become 3, and it'll work like that, right? So we said int count is equal to integer dot parse and request dot get parameter txt value, and we said out dot println count plus 1, right? So let us say we have declared it here. So let's use declaration and say int count, right? So I will say int count is equal to 1, right? So you can see int count is equal to 1, right? And you can now say count is equal to integer dot parse and request dot get parameter value, and then you can say out dot println count plus 1. Can we do this again right here? Can I print the value right here? I'll say is equal to count, right? So I can print the count back here, so that let's see what happens. Okay, 1, I get 2. I'm not able to print the value of count here because it happens on post. Count is equal, okay, I'm not doing it here, so I will say count plus plus, right? So we can say count plus plus right here, and now here what we can do, out dot println count. So after doing count is equal to count plus 1, I can do out dot print count, and same count will go here. Let me see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Now what we have done, we have declared a variable in count with 1, right? So now when you initially print the count here in the input type text, it has 1. Now what you are doing here, whenever post happens, you are taking the value from input type hidden and you are doing count plus plus, adding one more thing and printing the count. And now because count has been added, you are just taking that count in input type hidden. So now from text to hidden again, hide it. Now let's start from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you say that it starts from 2, yes, it is bound to start from 2, then you can mark it as 0 here. Int is equal to 0, so that you can do plus plus, right? So you can see now we start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But it was just to show you guys how to maintain explicitly a state of a page, and we maintain the state of a page explicitly, right? So maintaining, I'll make a file today for you, state of a page, right? So I will write it down here. Since HTTP is a stateless protocol and it does not remember states, so we need to explicitly maintain that state, right, by using either the input type hidden, or we can say hidden types, right, and right, hidden types, get parameters and sessions, right? Hidden types, I write it down, since hidden types and get parameters cannot be used to store sensitive information like session cookies for login authorization. All right, so this is all definition here, and it was quite easy, right? Just have to use bit of brains. Yeah, but I should keep on giving you these tasks. Let me know in the comment section if you love the task and if you want me to keep on giving you the tasks, so that I can know that you're attentive and you're listening to me. And all those who have completed, congratulations, you are wonderful guys and you are quite hardworking. And those who have not completed, again, these are early days. You'll get time again and again and again and again. By the time you keep on doing practice and keep on learning. Learning never stops, isn't it? Okay. And now the topic for the day is MVC. MVC, right? So we already done it. Now I'm going to give you the theoretical of the same, right? We already done with the practical of the same. MVC stands for model, view, and controllers, right? So MVC stands for model, view, and controllers, right? And it is the most modern, or we can say most latest design pattern for developing, right, web 2 applications. Web 2 means modern style web applications, right? And to understand MVC, we have to understand the logic of request and response here, right? Because theoreticals is what makes your base, right? If you do not understand theoretically what is happening, so then there's no fun of doing practicals, right? Because those practicals are going to be on the basis of assumptions then, right? So you'll assume that this is happening and that is happening, right? Right. So let me give you an example of a restaurant, right? So this is my favorite example. I give it to everyone, right? And I'm giving this example to you as well, right? So let me give you an example of an restaurant, right? Okay, I just have to change it to blue, right? So let's take this example. Okay, let me give you an example of a restaurant. For example, you go to a restaurant and you become a customer, and the job of customer is nothing but to eat. And who comes to you? It is the waiter, right? Waiter comes to you and takes your order back to the cook, right? Now this is called as request. Customer requested waiter. Why request? Because waiter may say no. The order that you are trying to, or the order you have, put forward is not available. We don't provide that. We don't cook that. We are not that restaurant. We don't have ice cream available. Doesn't mean every order will be forwarded. Doesn't mean every order will be forwarded to cook. He may get an immediate response from the waiter, right? Or he may get an immediate or a delayed response, which is prepared food, right? And the food will be delivered not by the cook and by the waiter, right? So this is the most simple definition of MVC pattern. So I cannot find more simpler definition of an MVC pattern, right? It's more simpler than this. All right, so I will say this is request, as simple as anything, and this here is response. All right, so this is a request. Okay, let me show you this. This is request, and this is the request forwarded to the waiter, and this is the response given back by the waiter. Now this is the request and response mechanism that we guys already know, but what is so difficult and different about this kind of model is that the customer here does not know the cook. So important point, so I'll say note, right? So I'll note it down here. I will ask some questions. Does the customer know who the cook is, right? And the answer is no, right? Now question number second, does the cook know who the customer is? And the answer is no, right? So this is called separation of concerns. What do you call this as? I repeat, this is called as separation of concerns. Now that the cook doesn't know who the waiter is, the waiter doesn't know who the cook is, everyone is doing its job nicely, right? Right, so this is called separation right? So this is called a separation of what? Separation of concerns, right? Or we can say separation of concern is best, right? What else can we say, right? Separation of is best. I don't find any adequate word or any adequate word to fit in here. Separation of concern means, let me define it more for you because separation of concerns might confuse many. Means everyone should do his job without peeping into others' job. That means each and everyone should do his or her job without peeping into others' job, right? Because cook has never seen the customer, waiter has ordered, right? So now what is waiter doing here? So we'll say waiter is doing give and take. What is cook doing here, right? So cook is handling the business logic. Whatever is given to, whatever order is given by the waiter prepares. Whatever order is given by the waiter to the cook, cook prepares and gives back it to the waiter. And customer is what doing? Customer is basically means of, right? We can say communication, or we can say customer is presentation. Customer is presentation logic. Now we know that we have three things in web application development or any software development. We have the presentation logic. Now presentation logic may look like this in front of you. Now we have data logic also. We call this as data persistence, right? So I'll write it down here. So data logic, right? So make it simple. Business logic, data logic, and presentation logic, right? So now let us basically relate this diagram with our model design that we have developed, right? Now let me close it down. Let's go to login because we're talking of login system. All right, so this is main page.jsp. Okay, let me go to let's say about home. Is it home? Is it home? Yeah. So now you can see this is the presentation logic. So in our word, this is the customer, right? So you can see you have only the presentation logic here. That's why I said we cannot write Java code in here because it's against the norms of MVC pattern. We have to minimize it. So the job of this page is to give order, which is the request. You're making the request and you're getting the response. Doesn't matter where the response is coming from. For example, if you're trying to log into Facebook, do you go and peep into what Facebook is doing and where Facebook is getting order from, and where Facebook is getting authorization and authentication and request and response from? No, you're not bothered about that, right? So your job as a professional is to know that this is the customer, and from here the order goes, which is the request, and order comes back, which is the response. A response and request mechanism can be, code error 404 not found, means the waiter has said that the order that you're looking for, maybe you have ordered ice cream. No sir, that's not available, please change your order. And that's what we are doing here. Please change your order, go back to home page, the page you are looking for is not available, right? And business logic is handled by a separate page. So let me see, this is the presentation logic, and our model is doing nothing, getters and setters, that's it, give and take of data, successful. So here we have login page, right, and give and take of data is model, and business logic here is handled by business logic here is handled by accounts controller, as simple as anything, right? So this is what separation of concern is. Accounts controller, let us take a look at all three things. ठीक है बेटा? And let's take a look at all three things. What is the job of waiter here or the model? Get and set. Take the order in setter and forward it. Get it back and forward it. Means we are taking username from here, giving it to the business logic, and the business logic is giving us back, please write your password. Now if I write my password right, we are getting Fahim is logged in, right? So let us go to accounts controller. Now I am asking you the question, does the accounts controller know where the data is coming from? No, it doesn't matter where the data is coming from. Login function is doing its own job, right? And here also you can see separation of concern. Is valid function is doing his job separately without even bothering what is happening in authentic. You can see if we connect database tomorrow, we'll not be changing the entire code. In case if we integrate database, we'll be changing just this function. So authentic is not bothered about what is happening in authorize not authentic, and as valid doesn't bother. Everyone is doing its own job, and the complete authentic the business logic class, which is account controller, doesn't know where the data is coming from, and data can come from anywhere, and model is not doing any job, is not snatching job of accounts controller is not snatching job of. So model is doing its own job, accounts controller is doing its own job. So now does the accounts controller know who the login page is? No, accounts controller knows model. Does the login page know who the accounts controller is? No, login page also knows model, because both are supplying data. And accounts controller, where is accounts controller getting data from? It's getting from model. So this is the basic view of MVC, model, view and controller. So this is only the pattern that we are following, right? So we have, so this, since we have not used any MVC framework, right, but have successfully used and implemented basic MVC pattern model to architecture, right? So designing architecture, right? So this is the answer, that since we have not used, so some widely, or some, or let's say MVC frameworks, some MVC works, or some famous MVC frameworks are as below. Number one, the famous frameworks. So I'll have to give a bit of space so that I can write, and you can see. I hope you're getting it right? Okay, good. You are very good students. Number one, it's famous for some of the famous MVC frameworks are in Java. Struts 2 framework is an MVC framework. Number 2 is Spring, right? Spring and Spring Boot. Number 3 is VS, which is Visual Studio, or we can say ASP.NET MVC. Number 4 is Django, used in Python, and we have like Laravel for PHP, and many more. So these are some of the famous used MVC frameworks. So now, what is the definition of framework? Right, so the definition of framework is it provides inbuilt libraries and classes that we use, implement and extend from. Why do we use frameworks? So that the amount of code that we are usually writing is minimized, right? So just to minimize the amount of code that we usually write to create a framework is minimized to some good extent, right? And nothing else. Let's get going. So this is it for MVC pattern, waiter, customer, and cook. You should always remember this. And now session. What is the definition of session? Session is a two-way process, right? And in our case, it is a mean of, so it's a mean of communication, or it is communication that takes place between a web server and a client, right? So session, I repeat, it is a two-way process, right? So because session cannot happen one way. Okay, now again my dogs are having cardiac arrest, please ignore them. Okay, session is a two-way process, and in our case it is a communication that takes place between a web server and a client for a specific period of time, which is called as persistent, right? Or for or let's say specific period of time, number one or number two. So let's say I'll number it down, say A, and now we have B, or let's say till the time, right? Or we can say under browser, or till the time browser remains open, which is non-persistent. Now there are two types of sessions. Session actually use cookies. I'll define cookies. There are two kind of sessions. One is persistent and another is non-persistent. Persist means persist with timings, right? Keep the communication on for a specific time, like Facebook has for 18 days. And non-persistent means the moment you close the browser, the session is gone, right? So, and let us take a look at the model again, right? So I have shown you the model. I'll show you again. Let us consider this to be web server, and let us consider this to be your what do you call it, client, maybe. Yeah, client, right? And this is web server machine. You all know that web server is first a machine. We install a web server, which is in our case Apache Tomcat or Glassfish. We first install it inside a machine and then we operate it from the machine, right? Once Tomcat or any browser or any other web server, like we have Glassfish is a web server which is used to render web applications. JBoss is a web server which is used to render web applications, and Apache Tomcat is used for JSP applications and servlets. So, but all the web servers are softwares. We require them to be installed in a particular machine. Like we are using our own computer as a server right now for developing applications, right? So we've installed Apache Tomcat, and maybe some of you have downloaded and installed Glassfish in that case. So both are web servers, right? So now let us see the operation of session management. What does client send? Every time I say, it sends a request. What do you get back? You get back the response. This is how the request looks like, and this is how the response looks like. So this is the request. What's time? So we still have, yeah, it's just 28 minutes. We still have ample amount of time. So client sends the request to web server, and the web server sends the response back. So let's call this as request and response. So this is nothing but request and response mechanism. Okay, request and response. So this is the request and response mechanism that we all need to follow. And could you please tell me the name of the web server that we guys are using? So let's call this as Apache. My machine has Apache Tomcat, or your machine may have Glassfish or JBoss, which is absolutely fine. So having a web server is not any priority or something. Yeah, we should have one, otherwise we'll not be able to render them. Doesn't matter whichsoever it is, right? Request and response mechanism. And before I go and tell you the theoretical of request and response mechanism, let's see a practical of session. All right. Now what we have is authorized function right here, right? You can see this authorized function right here. While I do right here, or let me not use authorized function. Let me again go to contact.jsp, right? And let us go to contact.jsp. Now let's say about I want this. Okay, now you can see count. We start with 10, and now if I refresh, we start with 11. Now if I again refresh, we start, I don't know how is it happening, but yeah. Just a moment, let me see. Yeah, we are doing it on post, right? So the post takes the value and the value remains in the input type hidden, which we can say can be input type text. So now we have 0, and then we start with 1, 2, 3, 7, and then it already has 7. You can see I maintained the state here. It already has 7. Doesn't matter how many times you refresh, the value will remain as 7 because you have kept 7. And then you start 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You maintain the state 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So you have been able to maintain the state of the page, and I've shown you very good example. I don't know the way you have done. I never asked for the source code, but yeah, if you're not done this way, you're done some other way, you'll not be able to maintain the state of the page the moment you refresh the page, because the state of the page will be lost now. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, you refresh the page again, right? So you can see 22, 23, 24. Now what if I go to another page? Right, so what if I want to display this count out.println. I want to display it in calculate.jsp. Let's say about I'm having this calculate.jsp file here, which we used earlier for exception handling. Right, we used it for exception handling. So let me delete all. We don't require anything here. No form is required, nothing is required. So let me go to calculate. Let me calculate. Let me go to calculate.jsp, and now if I say out.println, right, count. So let's see whether it works or not. So we're getting an error. Please define count. Now if I redefine count, let's say I define count int count. So now I have redefined it, right? So you can see clearly I redefined it. But what error do we get? Variable count might not have been initialized. We still have some limitation here. Now if I initialize it with 0, I'm going to get 1. Absolutely 1. So now if I go back to my previous page, which was contact, I suppose. What was the page name? Contact.jsp. And now if I say count 22, 23, 24, which is not available right here, that means we still have some limitations in here. You can see the limitations we are having, that we are counting here, and we are able to maintain the state of the page, right, which is contact.jsp, but the state is not transferred to as that of the another page. Now how do you make sure that you maintain that state of the page? Now what I do to maintain the state of the page, not in the page, input type hidden is very good. When you maintain the state of the page within the page, it's very good. You can see that state of the page is maintained within the page, right? You can see this state of the page is maintained within the page. The value is maintained within the page. But now, what if I want to maintain the state of the page across the application using a particular browser? Across the application, we have to remember that the state has to be maintained using a similar browser. Or maybe if I go to another tab, so I'll have to maintain it. Now calculate.jsp does not have it. So imagine I told you about session as a communication, a two-way communication process, and in our case communication that takes place between a web server and a class for a specific time, persistent or till the time browser remains open, non-persistent. So what I'll do right here, I'll maintain now the state of the page not only by input type hidden, but also by sessions, right? So I will say request dot response dot why do? Because we have implicit object. Session is readily available. Sorry, I thought it is servlets going on. So I'll say session dot set attribute. Let's call this count. So this is key. I repeat. What is session? It's a key and a value pair. I repeat, a key and a value pair, right? Key is to call the session and value is value count. I'll take count. So now whenever I call count, I'll get the count. Whenever I call this count, I'll get this count. Or we can say C. The name of the session is C. When I call session C, I get this count. Whenever I call session C, I get this count. I repeat, session is key, which is here, C, and value, which is count. Value can be anything, an object, a string, whatever value you want to set, you can set. Even an object can be a value here. Now instead of printing it out, so out.println, so I will say session dot get attribute. What was the name? Okay, what was the key? Come on guys. C, exactly. C was the key here. I call session by the name, which is the key. And that's why I said session is a key and a value pair. So now let me do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Refresh the page. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So this is maintaining the state of a particular page by using hidden types, but cannot maintain it throughout the application, but only throughout a single page. Now if I refresh this, 16, hey, hip hip hooray. Now we already have 16 here, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25. And I go and see that the state of the page is easily maintained. So we have been able to successfully maintain the state of the page by using sessions. How does it happen? Requires a lot of communication, and it requires a lot many things. So okay, so I think it will be better if we share the file in the next lesson or next lecture. So I will say JSP sessions. I'll save this file in the desktop and start from tomorrow. Alright, and we'll start tomorrow where we left today, and I'm giving you ample amount of things to look and think at, right? And do practice very hard, and as I said, encourage your instructors in this. Encourage your instructors amid 2019 COVID shutdown and lockdown and clampdown, whatever you may call it, right? And do share your thoughts. If you require any change in the delivery process, if I'm going too fast, tell me. Too slow, tell me. And if I'm going exactly good, still tell me down in the comment section. You are our dear students. Bye bye, take care, and wish you all the best for your rest of your life.